From the East Texas Sports Network studios, powered by Texas Dairy Queen, a tradition of excellence, the ETSN podcast, where Clint Buckley and Mike Graham offer their, well, they just talk. It's the lowdown on everything high school football in East Texas. And now, Clint Buckley and Mike Graham.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Week 4 edition of the ETSN.fm podcast. I'm Clint Buckley, and joining me always is Mike Graham. What's up, Mr. Mike?
It's good to be here, and it's district season for a couple of teams out in the region, so it's going to be a fun week.
So much craziness happened last week. I mean, I don't even know where to start. I mean, we had a sophomore quarterback tie a state record for touchdown passes. More on him later. Van absolutely bludgeoned its fiercest rival, Lindale, last week, 56-14. Gilmer hung up 60 points for the third straight week. Henderson kind of made a mockery of our game of the week, didn't they?
They absolutely did. I mean, yeah. Pittsburgh was a team that was reliant on its running back, Red Shields. He suffered a hand injury, and Henderson was able to stop their offense and ran all over them all night. It was a really tough game to watch.
White Oak took no prisoners in its rivalry game against Spring Hill. They win that one 56-8. And then finally, Lufkin, they score 54 points. They put up 612 yards of offense, but they were outgained by 200 yards and lost by 2 touchdowns. That's a gut punch right there.
Yeah, I think Bossier City Parkway has Texas team's numbers. I think it was its third or fourth consecutive win against an East Texas team at the Battle on the Border Showcase.
Yeah, crazy last week. I guess the thing that jumped out to me the most last week were all the lopsided outcomes. I mean, all across the board, games that we thought would be semi-competitive weren't.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't explain that to you. That's just sometimes how high school football goes. But we saw some really good teams. We saw some teams take that next big step, some teams that I think we're buying into a lot more today than we were at the beginning of the season. In particular, I think we're talking about Henderson and Van from 4A Division I. Yes,
definitely. You saw Henderson last week against Pittsburgh. You mentioned the injury to Red Shields. The running back for Pittsburgh, towards the beginning of the game, and all kind of going downhill from there. But would he have made that much of a difference? I mean, 71 points, that's a lot.
Right. I mean, with him in the lineup, I mean, you can dictate the pace of the game a little bit more, keep it close, and they got a touchdown and actually held a 7-6 lead in that game. Henderson scores the first touchdown, misses the PAT, and then Pittsburgh converts its PAT. And look, they had some good things going. They were capitalizing on turnovers, and then it really did fall all apart. I mean, would they have won the game? Probably not. Were they out-talented? They were, but I think it might have been a lot closer.
Probably not. Probably not 43 points difference between those two teams.
Exactly.
Probably not.
Right.
Well, you mentioned it up at the top. District play starts for a few teams, and in particular, District 11 6A. And a couple of newcomers this year to 6A. John Tyler of Longview get their feet wet in district, and then we also got Lee opening up as well. The first game I want to talk about is Rockwall at John Tyler, because I think at the beginning of the season we all kind of felt like this could be a game that ultimately decided the district championship. John Tyler has held up its end of the bargain thus far. They're 3-0. Rockwall is 0-3, but that's a little bit misleading.
Yes, they played Dallas Highland Park, Rowlett, and Tyler Lee can kind of attest how tough Rowlett is, and then played South Lake Carroll the past week. And their past 2 games against Rowlett and South Lake Carroll have been decided by less than one possession or less. They've got some good things going. They've got a really good receiver. I feel like, though, that John Tyler has the talent advantage. They're not reeling. They've won all their games, and they should have some confidence. It's a home game. And there's a lot to like about this John Tyler team, maybe more so than we thought when the season started.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with their defense, because, while the offense has put up points, it's not like the offense has been running smoothly. There's been, some times during games where their offense has kind of stalled, gotten some minus plays and some penalties. They had a ton of penalties last week in their game. Didn't really impact them too much. They ended up winning by 35 points, but it hadn't been all great on offense for John Tyler. It's really been the defense that's carried them so far.
It really has, and you look at their ends, and I mean, this is a team that had to basically overhaul its defensive line, and Howard Hawkins and DeKalen Goodson. Everyone knows about DeKalen Goodson. He's being recruited by Mississippi State as a junior, but Howard Hawkins
it's kind of come out of nowhere, right?
He looked great when we went to Shreveport last week when they played New Orleans Warren Easton. He had 4 sacks and 3 tackles for loss. DeKinnon Goodson had 4 tackles for loss and 4 sacks. And combined through the 3 games, they've already combined for 20 negative yardage plays. And you look at linebacker, you've got Sondrick Williams and Trey Allison, and they shore up a part of a defense on a team. When you look at East Texas teams, you think about skill players.
Yep, receivers and DBs.
Right,
yep.
and not so tough in the middle. And this team is pretty tough in the middle.
Yeah, I think that's made a big difference for them so far. Another game that's going to generate some headlines this week in 11-6A is Mesquite Horn at Longview. Horn had a rough go of it last week, but they were playing Cedar Hill. 59-21 losers. They're 2-1 on the season, just like Longview is. Longview has looked great since their opening week loss against Lufkin. They hammer Marshall 56-7 in week 2, and then last week they're all over South Oak Cliff 62-14. The interesting storyline in this game is the health of Mesquite Horn quarterback Chris Robinson, the OU commit. He was injured late in the first half of their week 1 game against McKinney Boyd, has not played since. There were rumors that he was available to play last week against Cedar Hill, but given the fact that they were playing Cedar Hill and the district opener was a week away, they probably decided to hold him out and save him for the Longview game. If he plays, that changes things a little bit because he's a dynamic player. He's a dual threat guy. He's a 4-star recruit. Put up, I believe, 2,300 yards of total offense last year in 11 games, and he was off to a great start this season. Had a big first half in week 1. Longview is same old Longview. They're running the ball. They had 11 different ball carriers last week against South Lake Carroll. Some of that was a product of the blowout and wanting to get the big guys like Kendravian White and DeCraven Polk out of there. But still, a lot of depth in that backfield. The offensive line is playing well. The defense has looked good the last 2 weeks. So this has the opportunity to be a really tight game. And after last week, I'm looking for some tight games.
Yeah, I think so. Longview did a really good job against South Oak Cliff, but this is their first venture back into 6A since playing Lufkin, more experienced Lufkin team to begin the year. This was a Longview team that brought back 4 starters, and I think that the new guys have come along really well, and they have to have a lot of confidence after back-to-back blowouts of Marshall and South Oak Cliff.
Yeah.
So here they are. But yeah, I mean, if I'm Mesquite Horn, I sit my quarterback against Cedar Hill. That's an exhibition game. This game has playoff implications, so it could be challenging. But like you said, Longview likes to run the rock and dictate the pace of the game, and I think they will be successful in that regard on Friday.
Another interesting side note about this game, every year this stat just jumps out to me, and it's just impressive. I still can't believe it's true, but every year, before Longview opens district play, I research this stat to make sure it's still real. John King is 66-4 since taking over the head coach as head coach at Longview in district games, and that was back in 2004. Only 4 losses in 15 years in district play. So history is on Longview's side, obviously, on Friday. So Mesquite Horn Longview ought to be a great one. The other 11-6A game involving East Texas this week is Tyler Lee at Rockwall Heath. This game is interesting because you got 2 teams that are running the ball right now. I mean, Tyler Lee, Chance Amy, they haven't really had to throw it that much. Amy's had a big start to the season on the ground. He's up close to 500 rushing yards now through 3 games. Rockwall Heath, that's all they do is run the ball. I think they've attempted 9 passes in 3 games, only completed 2 of them, and yet they're 2-1.
Yeah.
They've played well. So this ought to be a quick game, and I think it's going to come down to which trench group is more physical at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I think you're right. And you look at Heath, some impressive wins, 2-1 and wins against Wiley East and I believe
West
Mesquite, yeah. So not a bad way to start the season. It's going to be fun for Tyler Lee to go to the Metroplex and play. They've struggled at Wilkerson Sanderson Stadium in the past against Rockwall and Rockwall Heath.
Yep, 13-23 in district games since 2009 are the Red Raiders. So a chance for new head coach Clayton George to make a statement in week 1 by sending his team on the road and picking up a win against a quality opponent in the district opener. So that's 11-6A. A couple of big games involving undefeated teams going on around the East Texas region this week. We'll next venture into 4A. Van against Palestine. This is 3-0 versus 3-0. And I'll just ask you this: is any team in East Texas playing better than Van is right now?
Yeah, maybe Gilmer and Carthage, but Van is right there. They look great. They're really good in all facets. There's no weaknesses. Cooper Bledsoe, a safety, leads the region in interceptions. They have a great quarterback in Garrett Mosley, and there's a lot to like about them. And they've made the most of their schedule. You know, they scheduled Mineola, which is a state contender at the 3A Division I level, beat them pretty badly. Beat Princeton from their own level, and then last week go and crush Lindale from 5A. So,
I don't know if anybody saw that one coming. I mean, Van winning, sure, but 56-14 against a 5A program like Lindale in a rivalry game. We talked last week. I said, if Van is able to somehow just dominate Lindale and move to 3-0, it's probably time for us to start talking about Van being the real deal, and I think they are.
Yeah, I agree. And you look at their district, it's tough, but they're experienced with those teams. I think it might be a pretty good year for the Vandals. Hopefully not a repeat of the 2014 season where they went 10-0 and got upset by Paris in the first round. That was a really good Van team too, and you can see a lot of similarities between these two teams.
We'll talk about it more later as the season goes on, but that district is going to be, I think, a 3-team race between Terrell, which is off to a great start. I think they're ranked now in the 4A poll. Kaufman, which is a solid 4A team, and then Van. I think those 3 teams have, so far anyway, established themselves as the front runners in that District 8 4A Division 1. Palestine is 3-0, and finally some positive traction going on in that program. It's the second year under head coach Robbie Clark. They've gotten some wins over Jacksonville, which is, that's a big win in non-district. And then last week against Fairfield, hold them to 10 points. And right now, Palestine's getting it done with their defense.
Yes, absolutely. There's some really good things to like about them. But I also like their quarterback, Claude Rogers, because you can do so much with him. He's really improved his passing numbers this season, and he runs the ball well, and he always has. So that's something new that I don't think that Van has seen thus far, a truly mobile quarterback.
Yeah, and I think this is this is more of a measuring stick game for Palestine. I think both you and I agree that Van is a pretty sizable favorite going into this game, considering the track record and the quality of the teams that they've really hadn't had any problems with so far. I mean, they've won all of their games by at least 3 touchdowns. Palestine, this is a chance to get a gauge on where they're going to be come next week when they open district play, and that's a tough district. But this is a big game for them going into that district because they're going to see a lot of teams like Van once they start district play next week. So looking forward to seeing how this one turns out. It should be entertaining to say the least. Van and Palestine both 3-0. Now on to the game of the week. Woo-hoo. And maybe the game of the year up to this point. Gilmer and Carthage. If you look back at East Texas over the last decade plus, these are the 2 programs, the preeminent programs in East Texas. They've combined for 7 state championships since 2004. They're going to have the stage all to themselves Saturday night in Carthage. I'm looking forward to covering this game Saturday night.
Yeah, this is going to be a heck of a game. And I was trying to make plans on what I was going to do for college football Saturday, and I looked at this game, and I might just go as a spectator.
Better get there early.
I know. It's one of those games that you're so happy that the 2 teams kind of had the foresight to schedule each other, and really interesting because last year both teams go to the state semifinals, and It looks like both of them are working their way back to that kind of level. Gilmer in 4A Division 2 and Carthage in 4A Division 1.
Yeah, and I think there are 3 big keys to this game, and the first one is Gilmer's offense matching up against Carthage's defense. We mentioned it at the top. Gilmer has scored 61 points at least in their first 3 games. They had another big win last week against Argyle Liberty Christian, 61-19. They're rolling right now on offense, and that's in large measure due to its quarterback, Poppy Brown, a junior who's kind of burst onto the scene. He's up near the top in the East Texas stats leaders through 3 weeks, and Carthage's defense has played well. They held Liberty Ilo down to 20 points a couple of weeks ago, and then last week against White House, shut down White House to 13 points, forced a few key turnovers. And Carthage is good on offense, but they may be even better on defense. They've got solid play up front with Trey Gatlin at defensive end. Their linebackers are solid, led by Michael Gates, their big-time junior linebacker, and then they're deep in the secondary as well with guys like Makai Colbert at corner and Nick Moore at the other corner. So This is going to be a big challenge for Gilmer's offense. I don't anticipate them scoring 60 points this week, but that should be an interesting dynamic to watch, the offense and defense. Another key to this game is the quarterback play. Both quarterbacks have gotten off to a nice start. We mentioned Poppy Brown, but Kason Davis has also gotten off to a nice start. He doesn't have the big-time numbers that Brown has, but he's been very efficient at quarterback so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a really good line of Carthage quarterbacks. I mean, you go back to Bogenschutz, you have Blissett for 2 years, and now you've got a good year with Kason Davis, who kind of studied under them and has you can tell he's got a really good grasp of this offense.
And he's a coach's son. He's the
right.
OC's son. So, I mean, he knows what he's doing. He has command of that offense, and it's good because, Carthage was coming into this year having to replace, a record-setting passer in Jared Blissett. He went for over 4,000 yards last year. No Carthage quarterback had ever done that in a season. And for Davis to step in and play as well as he's played so far, it's been really good for Carthage. I think the X factor, though, in this game is Carthage running back Keontae Ingram. Gilmer can run the ball, and they have, but they don't really have what I would call a game changer at running back. They like to rotate in different guys at that position, where Ingram is basically the guy for Carthage. And if Ingram is able to dictate a little bit more of the offense for Carthage, and Carthage is able to establish its running game, I think that gives them a great chance to knock off Gilmer on Saturday.
Absolutely. Dictate the pace of the game, and you can win the game.
All right, before we get out of here, let's give a quick shout-out to our offensive and defensive players of the week. We mentioned him at the top. Bishop Gorman quarterback Jake Smith. Wow. I mean, he throws for 693 yards, which is the third most all-time in the history of Texas high school football. He ties the state record with 10 touchdown passes. And get this, Gorman scores 91 points in a 91-71 win over Ore City last week. And Jake Smith was the trigger man all night long. Just a tremendous performance. He's only a sophomore, so, I mean, we're just now getting started with this kid. And then you look at some of the other performances in this game for Gorman, it's pretty ridiculous. You had two receivers that both set school records for touchdown receptions. Judah Bell and Tyler Hobbs both have 5 touchdown catches. They combined for all 10 of Jake Smith's touchdown passes. Judah Bell set school records for receptions, 16, and receiving yards, 376. And if that weren't enough, they also had a 200-yard rusher in that game. Good Lord.
It's like one of those boxing matches where they stop playing defense and just start hammering each other, Bishop Gorman and Ore City. And it was really funny looking at the stats. We did the stats last night, and you can see them online now at ETSN.fm.
Gorman's got to be up there on all of them.
Well, I mean, Bell has a 290-yard lead on the next closest receiver, who is above 440 receiving yards. I mean, it's insane.
That's nuts. I mean, those numbers aren't going to continue, obviously, the rest of the season. But, I mean, what a night. What a night for Gorman. Congratulations to Jake Smith, our Offensive Player of the Week. Defensive Player of the Week, we talked about him earlier in the show. John Tyler defensive end, DeKalen Goodson.
Yes, this was a really tough decision among a couple of John Tyler players and a lot of other good but not nearly as dominant performances as we've seen in the weeks past. But considering what Goodson does from a spot where you don't expect this much production, I mean, 4 sacks, 4 tackles for losses, 12 tackles total, a forced fumble that John Tyler was able to recover. It was a really, really nice game for him in John Tyler's 41-6 win against New Orleans Warren Easton.
Yep, so a couple of big-time performances from a couple of Beast Texas ballers. Congratulations to Bishop Gorman quarterback Jake Smith and John Tyler defensive end DeKalen Goodson, our offensive and defensive players of the week. Well, that's going to do it for this week's podcast. As always, if you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to hit us up on Twitter at Clint Buckley, at Mike_ETSN, or the mothership at ETSN.fm. Once again, if you haven't done so already, head over to the App Store and download the all-new ETSN app to keep track of everything high school football in East Texas. It's perfect for scoreboard watching on Friday nights. And, as we mentioned earlier, we've got our stat leaders up right now. Mike worked until, how late last night?
4:13 a.m.
And you're here. You got here on time for the podcast. Yeah. Congratulations. Well done.
Usually I'm not on time, so.
Yeah, no, I was pleasantly surprised when I saw you walk in. I was like, wow, you're here. You're here right on time. So please do Mike a solid and check those out. I mean, he works really hard on those. And it's fun to see who's leading all the different statistical categories around East Texas. We'll update those now on a weekly basis from now until the end of the season come December. For Mike Graham, this is Clint Buckley. I hope you have a great weekend filled with football, and we will talk to you all next week.